All right, this was the original article, Human DNA Detected in 2-billion-year-old Meteorite. And then they went through the whole thing, and they say, nothing is as we thought it was. It means humanity's oldest story about life beginning in a warm pond on a young Earth could be missing its opening scene. Quotation marks. We have to contend with the fact we really don't know where life began. We have no idea, said Davies. It's entirely likely it didn't begin on Earth. Well, I can't say one way or the other, but I can tell you what, it's completely different than we thought it was. And I have shown that very clearly. All right, so they're finding DNA and all those things of life in asteroids, meteorites, everywhere. So they're saying from punchline to plausible. They laughed him out of, and they destroyed his career, this guy Hoyle. And but now they found virtually everything. They find everything there is to find in OSIRIS-REx sample, and that is a heart. It's not just some rock out in space that has all these amino acids in it and everything for the DNA and RNA, all of that stuff. It's a heart. Okay, my friends, I have not posted on Facebook in quite some time, and I figured I'll throw a couple up there. I realized why I stopped posting there, that people are brain dead. I mean, literally brain dead. It's just amazing. Now, I'm going to go over these asteroids, which this is Bennu, and this is Psyche. They just went to Bennu. They blew off a whole bunch of stuff, went deep down inside and pulled out a chunk of stuff, came home with it, and here it is right here. They're on their way to this one, which is Psyche. So we're going to find out what's going on with that too. But I already know what's going on. They are both biological. And they admit that. They say, yes, there's no question, it's biological. It's got all the amino acids. It's got all the virtually all kinds of stuff. Everything that you need in a human body, because it's muscle. It's from a heart, muscle, and these are the membranes that surround the sarcomeres. That's a bundle right there of muscle. That's how muscles come around. They come in like little cords, and they're all entangled, and they twist. In the heart, they twist. Other places, they just pull back and forth. And here's what the sarcomeres look like in a heart. I'm saying this was from a heart. This is from a heart. And this is what a heart looks like here on Earth. There it is right there. Same stuff. Which is muscle right there, same stuff. All right, now when it pulls together, it's like this. When it's relaxed, it's like that. But they have these stripes down the side, and they have all these little connective tissue, and then the red stuff in the midst of it. Which is exactly what we see. It's exactly what we see. That's it. That's a heart muscle. Well, do you see any difference between that and this? I don't. These are the blocks. These are the blocks. And these are the membranes that go over the top of them and below them so that they can slide and do their job. And these are the blocks, the same blocks. And these are the same membranes. And here it is, what they look like in an anatomical shot. They are what they are, and they are muscle from what happens to be a heart, which is this right here. It was a heart. Now, when they went down, something else all the Mudfossil people understand. The red and the black is the blood. Now, this is where they landed. And when I say landed, they went down and they blew off a whole bunch of stuff, grabbed a chunk, and came back to Earth with it. Where they landed, I have no idea. But they scoped this out for a long time. They were there going around it and watching it and looking at it and figured out, finally they homed in on a spot that it didn't look too bad, like it didn't have a lot of boulders. It looked kind of dusty, basically. So they figured they'd just grab a chunk of that stuff. But here's what happened. They hit and they went deep down inside. Every one of those is 2 meters, a black and a white. So that's 2 meters, 4 meters, 6 meters, 8 meters down. That's deep. Now, what else can we determine? So they hit bottom, grabbed a bunch of stuff and came back. You see this? That looks like somebody came up and took black tar or something like that and just put it over the top of this red, velvety looking stuff. Now, I'm sure this is a little bit enhanced. I would say for sure. However, the key takeaway is the black does not associate with the red. They do not get together. The black can get in with the yellow and the red can get in with the yellow, but the black can not get in with the red. They do not mingle. Not whatsoever. So wherever you see black, you might see yellow, but you're not going to see red. That's why the hearts pop apart. And that's what I've been saying right along. That's why, and this is not unknown. The autopsy people understand this. The people that work with cadavers for research, and they've been around for a little while, the blood has stopped in there. So, and well, I'm going to show you. All right, so what are we talking about? A heart. These are hearts. And why are we way down inside the plumbing? How did that happen? Why are in the same thing, the exact same thing here, no difference. Now, this is what they look like when they're, together, when the plumbing is on the top. We're looking down inside the valves. Why? How did we get to there? I'll tell you how, and I'll show you how. Which is these valves, and the muscle wrapped around, and it twists and twists and twists and twists, and that's how it pushes and pulls and pushes and pulls. Now, this is what a heart looks like. It's a real heart. Now, there's a line right across here where they break. So all that stuff goes, and you're right down here on that. And here's the line, and here's the reason it breaks. It's called iron banding. Remember I showed you before the black and the red, they hate each other. They just absolutely hate each other. And this is black when it turns into, when when it's no longer in the body, it turns black. The red stays red. The red never changes. But this turns black. And it goes right around it. Right around where all this plumbing is and all this tubing and all these things. And right underneath that is a whole batch of valves. And it just goes, and it pops right off. Without any violence. It just leaves on its own accord. And here you are with the remainder. And again, the black and the red, they do not mingle. They push each other apart. And this was deep inside, and they pushed all the blood and all the little bits and pieces and got down to where there was actual muscle, and they came back with the muscle. So it's time to take this into account for what it is. It's crazy to just keep walking around saying, oh, we're going to study, we study more, we're going to study more. It's the studying's done. What does it mean? What does it mean? I mean, first of all, they're looking for metals. They're doing this because these things are loaded with metals. Blood is saturated with metals. Blood is saturated with transition metals. And that's what they're going up. And the same thing they're showing, actually, look at this. This is Psyche. Now they're saying, here's what we could do with Psyche. We could turn it into a piece of metal. Because there's so much metal in it. They know there's metals in there. And anytime you take something that's, they would call it geological, I call it biological, and it has the blood in it, and the more blood, the better the metals are going to be. The more metal you're going to get. And that's just a fact. And I have meteorites here. This one here. It's a little tiny one. It's a lung from something. But it's magnetic. And you can't, you know, when I say magnetic, it's turned primarily into iron, because blood is iron. Almost exclusively iron is in the blood. Now, there's all kinds of other little molecules and metals in here too. And oops, if you smelt that, you get all kinds of different little crystallizations, because it's not just iron. Hold on a second. All right, you see that there? That one right there is the artery, and that's the vein. The black is the vein, and all these different crystallizations are different types of metals. All of these here, transition metals, are what moves things in your body. Those have these oxidation states. They can move things around. There's other things that move stuff, but transition metals are the best. Now, what this was, I don't know, but it was something that was saturated with blood, and everything else is burnt off. That's called smelting. At a certain temperature, all the stuff that's weak and combustible goes, and you end up with these metals. And then they crystallize because at one point this was almost entirely, melted. And it was just like a blob of metal. And when it cooled, you had these patterns. Now this is cut, of course. And that's what they find. Now, there's other ones. Look at this one. This was a real lung. I have lungs here. This is a lung right here. These are mud fossils. They're found on Earth. And that's the lung of some kind of creature, I don't know what. And that's where the main, oxygen, where you breathe inside. Then it flows to all these little tiny holes. It saturates this whole thing. Now this one, everything burnt off, which was the stuff that could burn. That could, at a certain temperature, you end up with iron, primarily. And that's why this must have been in the ionosphere for some time, coming through at a certain way, that it didn't explode into little bits and pieces, which that's what I would have expected. Something that big, it should have exploded into a million pieces. But you can see it did not. And that didn't happen here on Earth. There's no possibility for that, in my opinion. All of this stuff is meteorite stuff. And that dot right there at the bottom is where you can see there's blood coming through here. You see that red spot? That's one of the areas where the blood flowed. And that's very, very large. They got pictures of kids sitting inside here, in these pockets. Little kids, but kids. All right, you've seen Bennu is a heart, and it's in space, and it's pretty good size, but it's not anything close to this. This is 140 miles across, and that is a heart. That's Bennu. And they're on their way to it right now, and these are the valves. That's not impact. And this is 140 miles across, 170 the other direction. That is good size. Now, what else is out there that I can show you that's biological? Well, how about 67P? This goes back to 2015. That blast right there is from an artery. It's being cooked because it's close enough to the sun for the radiation to cook the moisture, which is blood. And these are polycyclic, aromatic hydrocarbons. That is barbecue smoke. Identical, no difference. And what's coming out of here is in between the tendons. There's a little moisture and it's squirting out between all the different tendons. Here I think it's blood vessels, but I'm not certain of that. 2015 now. So we have this picture and we have this picture here that shows it comes down and hooks over this way. What's that all about? This appears to be a hip joint, and it broke right here. And here's what a hip joint looks like, right here. This is what we just saw, and I believe it came over and broke right here instead of right there. But this is a hip. You know, I don't know what it's from. It could be from some other creature. I have no idea. All I'm telling you is biological, and it certainly fits that form. Exactly, identically. And these, and even like the muscle parts are here. You see this? This has extra little pieces coming off, and it's got a skirt like of tendons. You see them running up? That's where there's the smoke was coming out from before. And then there's a big vein, artery in here that comes all the way up, and that one there was really blowing it out. I'll show you that one. So we just saw here. Now, this is the one that really was smoking. This 40 millimeters is, 40 meters is like this. There's about 4 of those in there. So I'm looking for 500 feet is this artery. And that was what was blowing out that huge, huge quantity of meat smoke. And the astronauts say when they go out and they take a spacewalk, they come back in, their suits smell like steak. Everything out there is cooking, and as far as I can determine, everything out there is biology. I haven't found a single thing that isn't. The meteorites, the asteroids, the comets, and these are big. This is not any little tiny thing. You see here, and this is one of the bundles of muscle that comes across so that you can pull these things and twist them and all that. And that's what the tendons are for, so you can twist it around a little bit inside of its holder here. Now, this is so big that this is Raleigh, North Carolina. This thing is huge. Very, very big. And so think of the size of the creatures here we're talking about. This is a 140-mile wide heart. It's incredible. And that's why it's been so pushed against, because it shakes everything to its core. Now, I guess that's it for today, but I also show they're talking about now human DNA detected in meteorites 2 billion years old. And this is one of my meteorites here. Oh, actually 2 of them. I've got a bunch of them, and some of them are iron-ish, metal. Anyway, we're going to go back and continue on with this cave, where I found the cave. Well, I saw the cave pearls, and I know what they are. Now we're going to go to this structure, which they have these laid out in different. They call them different places because they have different geology, and it's not different geology, it's different biology, just like everything else is biology. That is biology, and I showed that in absolute stunning clarity with the cave pearls. All right, so stay tuned, my good friends. All right, so we got a 140-mile wide heart. Here on Earth, we've got some very similar. This is Vermilion Cliffs. This is a stomach lining. And it's saturated with blood still. And these are enormous. Here's a guy walking on top of stomach tissue. Alright? this is the size of these creatures. And this I was looking at, I did this thing about the cave pearls in this biggest cave in the world. It's a 40-story building can fit inside of here, and straight up. This is absolutely stunningly large. And these were the cave pearls, which are stomach lining. That's what they found, these cave pearls. And they said, wow, these are amazing. And they think they were created by concretions, but they're not. Those cave pearls are the same as, where are they? Up here. They're the same as inside of a stomach lining. And you can see the cave pearls in there. So everything that's here on Earth, and this is a digestive system. Next we're going to go down to here and see if we can figure out what this is. But I think I understand the whole thing right now. And I think you will too when we get done. I would just want to look and see what they're showing on these shots inside that cave, strictly for educational purposes. Now, all of this stuff, there's no way to deny this. They went up on here with a lander, a Philae lander. And this is what the chemistry was. It's all iron oxides, which is blood, hydrocarbons, and this is a Murchison meteorite. They saw land here on Earth. The only difference here between, this side's about the same. This side's a little lower on the hydrocarbons because they're burnt off coming through the space. These are still out there. These are the particles that they looked at out in space. Basically that's exactly the same, except these burnt off. That's all. Hydrocarbons, they burnt off, so they're lower. These didn't come through space yet. They came through space, you're going to see the same thing. And all that same chemistry, the same things out there as there is here. And I have a bunch of them here, and I've shown, and I will show some more. I'm just not going to let this go until we realize the universe that we live in. It's not what we thought. It's nowhere near what we thought. And these ancient texts and the mythology that we always thought was just silly, it's time to reevaluate it. Think about it again. If you want, then that's up to you. If you don't want to, who cares? It's up to you. That's what free will is all about. But, you know, to assault somebody that's just trying to think, that's not right. And that is what's been going on since day one, since I started into this. Velikovsky was destroyed. This guy that I talked about, I forget, a few minutes ago, he was destroyed. As soon as you talk outside the box, you're in trouble. Hey, see this, 1970. He thought maybe these comets could have seeded life to Earth. Hoyle's reputation in mainstream science never recovered. They destroyed him. The reaction was brutal. You should see what they did to Velikovsky, who was my hero. And they were just as bad to me, only worse, because I have evidence. These guys just had theories. They just had theories. They didn't have any evidence. Now there's evidence. Even right here, they found 14 of the 20 amino acids. This has just happened just right in the last few years. And they still just can't allow themselves to say, yep, that's biology, that's a heart. And this is not looking good for them. If you're a scientist and you can't see this, there's something wrong with your mind. Or there's something wrong with your morals. It's one or the other.